can hear that, right? Like an iron stray cat sitting on a fence. Ain't got enough dough to pay the rent. I'm flat broke, but I don't care. Strut right by with my tail in the air. Stray cat strut on ladies' eyes when the cat's no way. Had a shoe thrown at me from a mean old man. Getting my dinner from a garbage can. I don't bother chasing mice around. Step to the alley looking for a fight. Howling to the moon on a hot summer night. Singing the blues while the lady cats cry. Why, stray cat, you're a real dark guy. I wish that I could be as carefree and wild, but I got cat class and I got cat style. Yeah. All right. Everyone can hear that okay?
Yeah.
All right, great.
That's great.
Do I have time for one more?
Yes, one more would be great.
Okay, awesome. This one will be jazz.
That was fabulous. Fabulous.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And if I do it again, I'll definitely be on time.
Okay. You'll definitely get to do it again, we hope. And
Awesome.
I'm Barbara McGrew, and I want to welcome everybody to the Ward 2 and 3 Neighborhood Planning Assembly for January. It's going to be an exciting night. We have the first candidates forum, we think, for this election season, and we will proceed to that a little later. Again, thanks to Sam Atallah for the lovely music, and we hope to hear more at another meeting maybe. On my agenda is to introduce the other steering committee members, and Kevin Dudeman is here and Patrick Johnson. did anybody see Charlie? Is Charlie here tonight? Charlie Giannoni? Anyway, Jessica Hyman is here, Molly Claypack-Flanagan is here, and Tony Reddington. So
Charlie Giannoni said he'd be on, listening in, but would not be speaking.
okay, so he's here, kind of, that's good. The notification of our next meeting, it will be February 11th, the second Thursday in February. Recordings of this meeting can be found on YouTube and CCTV's website. We have an item about the 2021 funding request process and application deadline. I'm not sure if that's going to be Molly is going to talk about that.
Yeah, I was going to just give everyone a notification of the process. Yeah, so the city has awarded every ward $2,500 like they did last year, an increased level of funding. So in total, this joint Ward 2, Ward 3 NPA has $5,000 to support the operation of the NPA and community projects that support the NPA and the community. So that's fantastic. It's a little different this year with given the pandemic, but we hope that we can come up with exciting projects to allocate these funds for. So the process will be that we're asking for applications to be submitted by February 15th, and that we will have the projects presented at the March NPA meeting, which will be March 11th. And then directly after the presentation of applications, we will democratically vote on which projects and how much to award funding for. So these projects are should be community oriented. They should support the operation and or purpose of the NPA and benefit the wards that we live in. We're going to have to be creative this year. You know, we typically spend money on supporting the community dinner and the space that we hold these meetings in. We're going to have to be creative in how to support our community, but we're open to a lot of different ideas, organizing some sort of way of celebrating our community initiatives to improve engagement or accessibility of these NPA meetings, public art. Please keep in mind that all applications for projects must be in line with state and local public health measures, but we welcome your ideas, and we're open to discussing ideas with folks before they go through the process of submitting an application. But we have a web form that's the most streamlined way to submit an application. We also can do it through an emailed Word document or through paper. We don't want it to be a barrier for in technology. So if anyone needs paper, please be in touch with any one of our steering committee members. Otherwise, the web form and documents will be posted on the CEDO webpage for the NPA, as well as our website. So those will get uploaded in the next week. So they'll start being available next week, I would say. So again, the timeline is applications are due February 15th, and they'll be discussed at the March 11th NPA meeting.
Thank you, Molly.
Barbara,
Yes, Tony.
Comment, Tony Reddington, Ward 3, steering committee member. Molly, I think we ought to also thank those who made applications last year. Our Ward 2 and Ward 3 were the only two wards in the city, thanks to the efforts we made in June, and particularly to those who received funds, that spent almost all but about $50 of the $2,500 each ward received. There are a lot of folks, and it's not being critical, but I think that we hustled at the end, and we, in spite of the pandemic, we spent almost all the funds that the city council allotted to us. I think we should pat ourselves on the back and say we want to do that again. A lot of wards didn't even spend $500 or $600. So thank you for those who made the effort, and we want to make sure our councilors are aware that wards 2 and 3 did their job.
Thank you, Tony. Now I believe Kevin is going to talk about Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee open seats.
Yes. So there is an available seat for the CDBG, which is a Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee. And if anyone's unaware, it's a really neat opportunity to get involved in kind of local decision making. So we get a big block of money from the federal government, from HUD, that comes into Burlington specifically. There's a grant for the state of Vermont, but there's just one for Burlington specifically. And you review these grant applications and evaluate their, what do you call it? How closely they follow to the rubric, and you discuss like the value of each request, and you do it as a group, and it's all democratic, and you come out of it at the end having agreed upon a proposed way to spend all that money, and that gets passed along to the mayor, and traditionally whoever is in that seat has approved it based on the committee's outcome. It's really, really neat. Yeah, so there's an available seat. I'm pulling a blank. Anybody on the steering committee, is it Ward 2 or Ward 3 that's still looking for one? Is it Ward 2, I think? I want to say. I'll put money on the fact that it's Ward 2. So if you're in Ward 2 and you're listening to this, I've done it twice and I've really enjoyed it. I'd highly recommend it. It's a fairly limited time commitment. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Reach out to any of us on the steering committee if you're interested. We'll hook you up.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, we have a few minutes for public forum. If anybody in the audience wants to announce something or raise a community issue, this is a time you can do it.
Andrea has her hand up, Barbara.
Okay, thank you. Andrea?
Thank you so much. This is my first Zoom NPA. I'm really excited. I am on the Parks Commission, and I wanted to let people know a couple things. One is that the Sea Caves in Arthur Park is having they're doing a pilot project, and you may have seen something in the Front Porch Forum yesterday, but what was sort of missing from that Front Porch Forum post is that they're also soliciting information from people who use the park, and so they'd like to know kind of how you use it, what you like about it. So I'm going to put a link into the chat so people can take that survey and give feedback to Parks Department about how you use it, what you like about it, what you may want to see in the future. And I'm also going to just put this really awesome, the Arthur Park homepage has just so many great information about the cultural and environmental history of that area, even with a little Charlie Hour audio clip from Charlie's Boathouse talking about the history of that area. So it's just really worth it, and a look and a listen, and just wanted to make sure people know that that's happening and to give their opinions. And if anyone wants to share them with me, I'm happy to take information about what you love about Sea Caves in Arthur Park. I'm a fan. I'd love to geek out about how you're a fan too.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Anybody else? Nobody? Jessica, do you see anybody?
No, I don't see any other hands up.
Okay.
If anyone does have something they want to announce, feel free to put it in the chat at any time.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we are going to move on to the candidate forums. And at this time, I am going to reintroduce Patrick Johnson and Kevin Dudeman, who are on the steering committee, and they are going to talk to you about the format for the forums, some community guidelines, and how to ask questions. And they'll be moderating until the end of the meeting, when I'll come back to hear reports from various legislators.
All right, I guess I'll start the format. We're going to start off with Max, Tracy, and is Ali present tonight for the first candidate forum?
Oh, Patrick, I think we're starting with the city council.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading the wrong section.
Right, and before, you want to go over the community guidelines?
Yep. I'll just read right from it if nobody has read it already. Community guidelines are goal today is to gain a deeper understanding of the candidates' priorities, policies, and positions. Be respectful, please be respectful to the candidates and your fellow community members. Refrain from personal attacks and blame and inflammatory language. Also listen actively and don't interrupt, which is hard to do on Zoom, fortunately. Participate to the fullest of your ability. Use a text box if you really want to say something. And how to ask questions. Email in advance, which might be able to do at this point. I don't know how we're going to facilitate. Kevin will be reviewing questions. I guess I'll be helping because we might get a lot more than we expect. There'll be some in the chat box that we might be able to get to. We already have submitted questions that we will probably get to first. And if we can do it seamlessly, we'll try to do a mix of the two. I don't think we have, include your name, please. In the ward you're from, whether your question is for a specific candidate or a general overall question. I don't know if we have the ability to allow people to video a question in through Zoom or not. I don't know if that isn't part of our format. But try to type it in the chat and we will do our best. So I was going to facilitate for the candidate forums. Molly's going to provide us with a timekeeping scenario. Each candidate will get a 1-minute opening statement. We decided that because we know the candidates pretty well. We've seen each other plenty of times, but so we didn't feel like you needed too much of a long-winded platform to get going. We figured this would be a good point for community engagement with you since we don't have a lot of that face-to-face interaction at this time. Hope you don't mind, we've curtailed that. We'll start off with Tiki and Perri. Who would like to offer? We don't have a coin or anything like that to flip for who goes first.
If I may suggest, the incumbent probably deserves the right to go first. So I'll make that suggestion if you're amenable.
You can choose. Yeah, all right. Perri, would you like to go first or last?
Sure, I can go first.
And again, we'll do 1-minute opening statements each. We'll do questions. We'll do a little bit of follow-up, and then we'll do a 2-minute closing for each.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Perri Freeman. I'm the Central District City Councilor, so Wards 2 and 3. I know probably a lot of you know me, but I do, for anyone who's new, I work in long-term care at an assisted living facility, and I also have a background in community organizing. It's been a huge honor to represent this district for the past 2 years, and I'm really excited to be able to continue that work. Some of the things that I've been really passionate about when I first joined council, I led a resolution to declare a climate emergency in Burlington and to look at a Green New Deal framework. I've also worked really hard on issues like the fair and impartial policing policy, on the reparations task force, as well as some other community justice issues. These are the issues that I feel really passionate about. I'm really excited to continue that work around climate and community justice. And yeah, I'm excited to be here tonight. I'm excited to hear your questions and excited to earn your support. So thank you, everyone. And made it a time.
Good job. Tiki.
Thank you. A minute goes by quickly. Thank you for having me here. NPA, this is pretty awesome that you organize this. So, I got to this is pretty cool. It's really hard to do this. Real quick about me, I moved into town 20 years ago. I had left a city, which is kind of bumming, and really wanted to find the best place to live. So my now wife and I traveled the country in search of that place. Looked at a whole bunch of places and found that Burlington was it. So by the way, this is the best place to live, at least according to us. We settled here 20 years ago and have never looked back. Not once had a single regret about living here until now. In my time, I've been very active in the community. I twice chaired the Burlington Progressive Party. I'm still on it, but I'm on the Public Works Commission, chaired it for 3 years. On the Permit Reform Committee, it's the newest department. And I'm really psyched to be here as part of this community, and I am concerned, which is the reason I'm running.
Good job, Tiki. All right, that is, you're right. It is too short. Barbara had made that note earlier. But hopefully we will cover all the bases with questions. Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do we have a first question?
We do indeed. None have come through the chat that I've seen so far, but there is one that came through on email. And it appears that this is for both of you. Will you plan to work with all the citizens of Burlington as early as this month and then continuing after our town meeting day elections to reach consensus on a workable and effective method to fairly increase accountability and democratic citizen participation in city policing with a comprehensive charter change resolution in 2021 that can go before Burlington voters and then the state legislature in 2022 with our community support? That's from Bob Kiernan in Ward 3.
Okay.
Yep.
Tiki, would you like to take the first response?
Sure. Just remind me, we had a minute. Is that what we're looking at?
A minute, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So yeah, policing in 1 minute. I think we can do a lot of change. I do have a goal of achieving police reform, right? I think this community is united in its want for police reform and accountability and change the status quo effectively. So I think there's no disagreement here about that. What matters is the path to get there. We've seen the Freeman proposal just last week was vetoed by the mayor, and the veto sustained. It was a radical path to achieve that objective. My objective would be, we have a wealth of resources here to achieve that same objective, especially with our existing police commission, who represents our community quite well. They're very intelligent people. So we might be able to make it easier by using that commission and advocate for accountability on the police force. I think we can get there with what we have. I'll stop there.
You can also come back to it later if we don't get a lot of questions. It is a big topic, and it really,
I'll leave that to you all.
a minute pales. Perri, would you like to?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is a big question right now. I worked really hard on the initial proposal that went through the Charter Change Committee, but that process had actually started earlier. I served in 2019 on the special committee to improve on policing practices. That oversight came up during that committee. There were multiple stakeholders involved, represented from the union, the police union, representatives from BPD. I believe Chief Miro served on that committee. The administration was involved, representatives from the police commission. So these are issues that we've been debating for a long time, and oversight has been debated for a long time. I have already reached out to the administration on taking next steps around that. We're sort of in this delicate moment where we're trying to figure out how to kind of get everyone on the same page. And some of that is going to be over whether we do have some differences that are not reconcilable and what things we can actually compromise on. I have continued to reach out to all stakeholders to hear their input. And I think we're just going to have to work through this. It's a really complicated topic. And I appreciate how much engagement there's been on it. I know people are really passionate about it.
It's not, yeah, sorry. I'll try to be generous in your sentences and not hold you.
That's okay. The lightning round is a debate style it's a good challenge.
This is not the lightning round? My gosh.
Kevin, do you see the one from Jules Fisherman in Ward 3? Would you like to comment on the mayor's recent veto? Perri, would you like to take this one first?
Sure. It was unfortunate. I you know, it is what it is. You know, I reached out to the mayor pretty quickly after that to talk about next steps. I think we were in such a short time frame, and I wanted everyone to get on the same page. I tried to do outreach. It can be really hard in that short period of time to kind of kind of go around and cover all your bases. You know, I do wish that hadn't happened. I do think it would have been good to put it up for a vote. And I think we could have gone back to the drawing table again and looked at it, especially if it wasn't the model that was approved by voters. But it is what it is. And, you know, I'm ready to just keep working on it. We have to keep sort of chipping away at it. Like I said, it's a complicated topic. And I'm ready to just keep working on it.
Thank you, Perri. Tiki?
Yeah, so briefly, that again, the Freeman proposal failed for a reason, because it was not rooted in good governance. It took a path towards a charter change that may or may not have been necessary. Now, there's accountability at hand here. I know there's a disagreement with Councilor Freeman about whether the chief should even be involved with overseeing his own team. I would argue that good governance and teamwork involve oversight. They have to have a say in that, so you cannot cut them out. There were folks who were not invited to the table, and that's the reason this proposal failed. And I think what frustrates me and a lot of people I speak to in the community as I make phone calls is, number one, there's a fear that this council is going in a direction that is effectively disintegrating this police department, and it's frightening. So there needs to be acknowledgement. There also needs to be ownership, I think, by Councilor Freeman to this failure. We just lost 7 months of progress, of potentially working towards a proposal. And now we have to start again. Certainly we will begin that discussion, but I needed to highlight that. And that's actually a big purpose of why I'm running.
Thank you.
Are we allowed?
You want to do a rebuttal? Oh, yeah, I think.
Am I able to do a response?
No, I think that's legitimate. We'll do a 30-second if you don't mind.
Is it allowed? I mean, I don't want to do it if I don't want to do it.
No, that's part of the dialogue here.
Okay. 30 seconds. So yeah, 30 seconds. So extra quick. So yeah, in terms of accountability, so that's the aspect. If you look into the research, there isn't an abundance of research that indicates that having the chief involved or police departments involved in oversight creates accountability. If the end goal is accountability, then that's what we need to focus on. And I think that there's essentially that is the focus, and not so. I think we should work from that value and that goal, as opposed to I'm not sure how good governance or not sort of plays into that in terms of
that's
the fact that
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry,
I have
to keep it moving.
I'm trying. Thank you
sorry.
for letting me respond.
Another quick question. Do you believe that being held in sort of a blackmailed state by the police department will allow us to come up with an appropriate reform if we're being threatened by the police station to reduce our police force, effectively allowing crime to run rampant? Are we going to objectively be able to come up with a solid proposal, or is everything going to be done out of white fragility and fear? Tiki, would you like to go first?
I think if I heard you right, you framed that question as the police department threatening the community. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Is that right?
I believe that was the question.
Okay, you're repeating a question.
Threat of reduction of force. I'm going to clarify that, which is sort of a threat.
All right, so these are not yours. These are questions from the community. So real quick on police, right? This council that exists today, dominated by the progressives, cut the police force by 30% without a plan. I'm going to reemphasize that, without a plan. Just the other week, it was saying, we're trying to do this, we're trying to get there. Guess what? In the interim, we gotta live here, right? People who have I've invested 20 years here of energy into efforts. I got a home that I bought that I thought I could raise a kid in. That's kind of why I'm here, that this department was cut without a plan. We need a plan. So in terms of reduction of force, I'm completely sympathetic to having community resource officers, for example, to handle mental health issues. My gosh, the Miro proposal right now addresses exactly that, which is partly why he's asking for more funding to increase staff, which would fund a good dozen community resource officers. So that's brilliant. We got to go there. It's one step. It's not everything. We could correct use of force as well. In 10 seconds, it's hard to get to it, but we need to continue this. There's a better way to do this than what has been done. Thank you.
Okay, Perri.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I would frame it in those words in terms of blackmail or a threat. I do think that there are stakeholders at the department who are at odds with stakeholders in the community who are kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum right now. And that is a hard place for us to work through. It's something that I talked about in my follow-up conversations with the administration. I think, you know, and I know this person who asked the question mentioned white fragility. There are so many sort of tensions and complicated conversations that need to happen in our community about white supremacy. And that involves, of course, since this question was talking about the police department, that does involve conversations about the police department. I think that's really hard work. It's something that I've been thinking a lot about this past year, and how I partake in systems of white supremacy, and what we need to do as a city to change that. And I'm at time, so I'll stop.
Okay, Kevin, I'm losing track of all of the questions I'm getting in.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I tried to read that other one in a little tiny text box. It didn't really work out.
Totally. That's why I'm on it.
I'm gonna push
You
it back
focus on
to
corralling the troops and stuff. So the next one on in the order is from Andrea Todd, and it's, what are the candidates' visions for complete streets and improved transportation infrastructure in our neighborhood and city?
Okay, Perri, would you like that one first?
Yes, thank you so much for asking this question. I was thinking about this. I feel like so much of the work that I've been doing has been sort of not as much around transportation issues, although it's still something that I feel so passionately about. And I'm really excited in this, in another term, to look at really increasing access to pedestrianization. I have some sort of ideas rolling around in the back of my head. I was just talking about this with a fellow counselor about the walk bike master plan. I think it's something that we can really work to expand. It hasn't been as much of a focus over this last year, but I think it's certainly something that I want to focus on more going forward. It remains something that's just essential, and not just in like our climate goals, but also just quality of life, and to make this city like a livable city and a livable community. So I really appreciate that question, and I'm looking forward to digging into it more in the next bit.
Hey, Tiki.
Thank you. What a great question. Right up my alley here. You know, having been on the Public Works Commission for 9 years, doing exactly this. I mean, you view the city differently in terms of complete streets, where the streets are city assets and they could either have cars on them or not, or multiple modes of transportation, right? And that's how Complete Streets tries to view this, getting people from point A to B. For myself, I've enabled that effort in many ways. So for example, just recently, making it official to plow the bike lanes, for example, where we had an informal policy, but it's not as important as a formal policy to be able to do that. There's still a long way to go, right? We have a patchwork. We have a much better bike infrastructure. There's a better way to get there, but it has to be sensitive to residents' needs. You know, transportation wise, our streets are just so unique because they're so old. And in 10 seconds, I think we need complete streets for many modes of transportation, and I'm actively already working on that anyway.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up? And I'm going to offer, Tiki, if you require any follow-up to something Perri says, you are afforded the same accommodation. Please just chime in.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So next question, right? So there was one, there were actually two that came in near each other that are just for one of you. So we'll start with the one from Matt Kelly, and it's directed at Perri, and it says, as an elected city councilor that you accept money for, this summer you opted not to join a city council meeting and instead join a protest against a public servant that terrorized the people of color inside, including minors. Do you regret that decision? Not entirely,
Yeah.
What?
I'm not entirely sure.
Perri, that's directed towards you.
That's for me.
You can, yeah, in case
Sure.
it was clear.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with folks. I'll say what I've said to everyone, which is basically, it's a fine line between being an organizer and being an elected official. My actions to sort of partake in that, or my decision to partake in that action was around wanting to have solidarity. I feel pretty strongly that as an elected official granted this power, I also am not above sort of anyone who's the most vulnerable in our community. But I also got a lot of response from people and people that I'm very close with and that I respect, who said that they really strongly disagreed with it. And I took that to heart. And that's what I said to anyone who asked me. I think that it was not the right decision because it had negative consequences that I didn't anticipate. And I am not above apologizing and saying that it was an error, that I didn't anticipate that. And so
Okay.
Time's up.
Patrick, do you mind if I might move?
Oh, yeah, feel free. We'll give you 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I need to acknowledge, right? I genuinely think that Councilor Freeman is a good person and did not mean for evil. And I think it's courageous for her to apologize for that. My reason for wanting to say something here is that is a big part of my motivation for running. That decision, it was a bad decision in my opinion. It scared a family and two young daughters away from their home. And I think that populism is what resonates in DC today, where we just saw the Capitol taken over. So it's just, you can't equate them, of course, they're different, but I see a similarity there that is frightening to me and so many in this community right now. Thank you.
Okay, good point. We do have the next question. Kevin, are you looking at the same one for Tiki?
I'm not. There was one that came over email that I forgot to post into the chat, but I didn't want to confuse the order. Sorry, what?
Oh, sorry. I was trying to be fair with the back and forth. Perri had a question.
I think she wanted to maybe add to something Tiki just said.
I can either respond or if we want to move to the next question, that's fine.
What do you think, Patrick?
If it adds to the conversation, yes, please respond.
I just wanted to say that I understand that there's this concern around populism, but I don't think it's, to me, and I didn't hear you say that right-wing populism and left-wing populism, or left-wing movements and right-wing movements are the same, but fighting against white supremacy and fighting for white supremacy are not the same thing. And people's lives are on line due to historic oppressions, and those things are contextual, and people have been harmed and their bodies have been damaged due to systems of white supremacy. So yes, sometimes people act out strongly and march on someone's street, but I think those folks are historically fighting for their lives. So I just want to be careful not to equate right-wing movements with people who are fighting against historical oppression.
Yeah, important difference noted. Thank you. Kevin, you want to move to that Tiki question?
Yes.
Usurp your...
No usurping, I'm just trying to help. A question came through asking Tiki if you have a history of chairing the Progressive Caucus, is there a reason that you're not seeking the Progressive nomination for this race?
Such a good question. Yes, the short answer. The longer answer is, I've found that the Progressive Party has drifted in a direction that has not really been what I've been all about, which is good governance. So there's a significant faction of the Progressive Party which contributed to the high numbers in the caucus recently who care about good governance more so than these, the idealism or the utopianism of the pursuit. And so good governance matters before everything. What I found then as an independent, I feel there's such a liberation to this, is that I don't have to look at the world through a partisan lens. I can let it go. So the vitriol, the demonization that I used to have as part of the progressives is gone. I actually see people in a new light now, that I don't think there are people on the commission who are demons or out to try to squash, whatever cause is on the table. But I think people are good people and they mean well, and we need to open our minds to that rather than view everything through a partisan lens. So that's really why I'm running as an independent, despite my background.
Thanks. Would you consider yourself a progressive anymore, Tiki?
Absolutely. I guess I have to use small p, to be honest, because I don't have the banner of the big P, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. So next question is for both candidates. Are you in favor of rent control? This is a question from Roger Leibovitz of Ward 3. Rent control.
Perri, would you like to start that one off?
Sure. Yes. One of the most polarizing issues. Sure. It hasn't come through the council yet, but I would like us to, I am interested in having the city look at this as a study and look at this as an option for Burlington. I know that CEDO and the administration put together a sort of compiled a series of recommendations to improve and protect renters. This was not sort of advanced as part of that sort of initial research as a possibility, but I think that we should be considering it as a possibility. There are so many ways that this policy could sort of, in terms of the actual nuts and bolts of it, but I think rent caps overall are part of they decommodify housing, which is a human right. And I do think that is important, and that's something that we should look at and take seriously as a community.
Okay, thank you. Tiki.
Thank you. What I think is important here is, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Rent control is a solution for something, presumably high rents, of course, and we've seen it applied in other cities around the nation. So here in Burlington, I would ask, is that what we're trying to solve? Is it high rents? Is it the condition of apartments? Is it gentrification? These are issues to me, and what I do in my work all the time is break down a problem and let's try to advance that and try to figure out what the best solution is. So is rent control the best solution? I'm skeptical, and I'm by nature, I'm skeptical of any idea out of the gate. So I'd like to explore, what are the options on the table right now? What can we do to address high rents and low-income housing? For example, there's Just Cause on the ballot right now, which is effectively a spinoff of rent control. I oppose that because I don't think it'll achieve those objectives of addressing high rent, the condition of apartments, and gentrification. And I'll come in on time.
Perfect. Perri, would you like a follow-up there?
Yeah, I just want to, just cause eviction and rent control are, I just want to be, because I feel very strongly about the just cause eviction policy that's made it onto the ballot as a charter change. And there was a lot of confusion around whether it was rent control or not. And they're just not the same policy. They have their own merits. They have their own, people have their own issues with them, and then they have their own support for them, but they're just two very separate things. So I just wanted to make sure that people know that, because that was very confusing when that charter change came up. And I just want to make sure people know that.
Patrick, this is an important one. Do you mind if I take 30 seconds or so?
Yeah, I think that is fair.
I leave it to you in your best judgment.
Yeah, no,
it's there.
It's productive discussion. Thanks.
Okay, I'll take 30 seconds. I'll give you that Just Cause is not rent control. It's an evolution of it. So, Councilor Freeman is correct in that sense. However, Just Cause will do damage. It takes away an important tool for small-time landlords who've been in this community for ages to try to remove bad tenants right? Let's face it, there are bad landlords and there are bad tenants. And the best way to remove bad tenants is no cause, which is what we have today. We have a neighborhood in Ward 3 that was extremely impacted for 2 years because it was so hard to get rid of these folks. It drags down the energy of a neighborhood. Kids are nervous, parents are nervous. We need no cause. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank
Right.
you. Perri, you're all set there. Kevin?
Yep. Next
I'm
question.
good. I'll be trying to read everything.
Next question is from Janet Karskadden from Ward 2. Our city council is moving towards increased diversity, but is not fully representative of our community. All folks bring their own implicit bias to their work. What have you done to check your biases to make sure that you are not developing policy just based on your perspective, but represents the diverse views of our community?
Perri, would you like that one first?
Yes, but I think Tiki maybe is up. I just don't want to.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm just going. All right.
But
Yeah.
I can go first. I'll go. Is it awkward? Should I just go?
No. I'm
Go
just
for
saying the last person that spoke, it wasn't necessarily logical.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know in terms of the question. I didn't. Sorry. Yeah, this is a great question. Sorry, so throwing up for that. So I've been thinking about this because people, I was getting questions about my process, and we've been talking a lot about process lately. And I think one of the things that feels really important to me in the work that I'm doing, especially when I don't, as someone who's representing a diverse array of backgrounds and folks from all sorts of walks of life and identities, that when I'm dealing and looking at an issue that's impacting vulnerable communities that I don't have the experience of living that firsthand, that it's very important to me that those folks be front and center in that policy making and that decision making. And that's just something that I feel is just part of my values. And I think the way that I think of problem solving and community building is allowing people to be in a position of agency over their own life and the experiences that they have. And so that's one of the ways that I've addressed that in my work.
Okay, thank you. And Tiki.
Such a good question. Oh gosh, I hate a minute is hardly justice to it. So real quick, so I'm gonna tell you a story. I will never forget going to the Museum of Tolerance, and the guide was bringing us through and say, okay, on this side, we have a door that says, if you are biased, go through that door. If you're not biased, go through this door. And then the crowd dispersed and went to their respective doors, but the doors led to the same exact place, right? So it was an admission that we are all biased. Let's admit it. I admit, as a white male, I have the white privilege that has carried me to where I am today. And it's extremely uncomfortable to run against a female because I'm completely supportive of having as many females in power as possible, just given history. As part of the progressive movement, I have often put my own opinions aside and deferred to the underrepresented voices and said, this is for the better good, right? We need to raise those voices up. So there's so much more to say, but I do completely respect the voices of others, whether they be Black, white, Hispanic, or business owners, or residents, low-income people, or people at the food shelter. We all deserve that voice. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna. There's a ton of questions, and unfortunately, we have to move along to the mayor forum. Do you guys want to provide a closing statement of 2 minutes?
One real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt. I did accidentally skip someone who was up higher in the order, and I missed her question. Lila Fortunoff. It sounds like it's a quick follow up to Tiki. And then could we move on to closing statements? It would be a quick one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Tiki, I'm not quite sure from your answer about police accountability. This is going back a little ways. Would you or would you not support a charter change to achieve police accountability, or do you think it should be done through ordinance?
Okay, yeah, going back to that one, I'm open-minded to whatever solution will get us there. You got to recognize that in terms of a governance pattern, that a charter change is, look at the path that's ahead of us. Number one, it has to be approved by the ballots, on the ballot. Number two, it has to go to the legislature. Number three, it's got to be signed off on. Number four, then we got to implement it. So you have a number of barriers to a charter change that I think, again, it's not off the table, but we got to explore, is there an easier path to get there? I think there is. And my fear with this charter change that Councilor Freeman had proposed was that it risked costing us years without any sort of discussion and real effective reform at the police. Imagine this thing getting held up in the courts because it violated the union contract, for example, which it most certainly would have done. We would be here 5 years from now on this NPA saying, boy, too bad we don't have police reform. I fear for it, that proposal had gone through. It was not a good path to take. So am I open-minded to a charter change? Yeah, sure. If that's what's going to work, that's great. There's a whole lot of other options we didn't even consider.
Okay, Perri, would you like to respond, since you probably were part of the conversation to consider if there was?
Sure. Yeah, I don't believe that other measures and this charter change were mutually exclusive. I agree that there were still legal questions outstanding, but I think that could have been addressed during the public hearing process, which I think was something that was discussed. It was vetted by the city attorney's office, but there, of course, things continue to come up. So I thought that would have been helpful to have it go through that. There are a lot of other reform measures. This community has also tried a lot of reform measures. It's also clear that we are not taking considerable enough steps in terms of addressing police violence and police brutality. So I really think that, with this issue, and the administration agrees, it requires a charter change. And again, it's just not mutually exclusive with other things that we can be doing to, like, looking at the police union contract, which the administration has also agreed needs to be reviewed. These are things that have bipartisan support, and they're not mutually exclusive. We can we can do multiple things to address this issue. So
thanks. And Perri, since you went first last time, Tiki, would you like to go first this time for your closing statement?
Oh, sure. Why not? That sounds great. Tom, just remind me again how long of a time do we have here?
2 minutes.
Oh my gosh, this is luxury. I don't know that I'll use it all. Thank you again. It's sort of the standard, but I really mean it. That I think I'm a big believer in teamwork. In terms of my work, what I do every day, teamwork is so important, and that's why I'm thanking this NPA for pulling this through. It is not easy to do remotely. It's difficult in person. So when I had that advantage going for me, but to do this, my thumbs up to you all. On that theme of teamwork, I see Burlington as a team, that we must act like a team and as if we all care about the same things. Now, again, I share a lot of the objectives of Councilor Freeman here. I just have a different path to get there. And a part of that is respecting the teamwork that's here. So for example, if we take police, they are a team. Even the proposal had police carrying out public safety in it thereafter. And so we have to include them in the conversation. They have to be a part of that. We have teamwork in, well, I cited the NPAs, the public works, for example, right? They're trying their best to work so hard amid a pandemic. You can imagine what it's like to try to snowplow and share a truck with somebody during COVID. You're going to go home sick. Teamwork is everything. Whether you're at the council, you're on the police with, say, a controversial issue, whatever it is. And I think that is my vision as we do this. And with that brings pragmatism, it brings collaboration, it brings compromise, it also brings civility. And these are values that I think are so important in especially today's world where there's such isolation, right? We see the news on the national level when we think this world has gone mad. I don't want to see it in my home yard. I think we can do better. So to me, I think it's important that every voice be represented, whether you're a student at UVM, a low-income renter, a neighbor up the road, a small business owner, whoever you are, you're a visitor. I truly believe that if you interface with Burlington, you are Burlington and your voice is important. So I kindly ask for your vote in this next election for City Council.
Okay, thanks, Tiki. Perri, you have 2 minutes.
wonderful. Thank you so much for putting this together, for everyone being here. I just looked check the participants. We're up to over 100 people. That's just so amazing. I love the NPA. I got really involved in local, Burlington politics through the NPA. It's sad to not be able to meet in person. I'm really excited to be able to do that again. This, for me, this has been an incredibly hard year. I think for all of us, this has been an incredibly hard year with COVID. This pandemic has, I think, in a lot of ways, just been so emotionally devastating. It has been economically incredibly tough. And it's been just a really hard year. And as much as it's been a hard year, I think crises like this provide an opportunity for us to come together. And also it shows when sort of the areas that aren't working. We've seen ways in which our housing system is falling short, food systems, healthcare. I think this is an opportunity for us to evaluate, to come together again as a community to really center what is meaningful to us, that essential goods are something that are right for everyone, and that that we have a lot of healing to do and a lot of progress that we can make coming out of this. So I'm really focused on, sorry, the chat is distracting me. I'm focused on sort of how we're going to come out of this pandemic, how we're going to come together, how we're going to sort of deal with the fallout. And I really, I'm excited to continue to work with you and connect with all of you. And and look forward to connecting with you over the next couple of months of the campaign. And thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for your support.
Thanks. Very good. I think we've accomplished what we've set out to do via Zoom. And we are going to, hopefully you all will stay around for the Mayor Forum. Thank you. And hopefully we will perhaps have an opportunity to do this in February again. Okay, thanks. And Barbara, I'll turn it back over to you, and then we'll go. We're just going to go right to the mayor. Oh, sorry, Barbara. Can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're doing the mayoral forum as well.
Yeah, all right. I don't see. I guess we're going to move into it.
Just keep it rolling.
Keep it rolling. Okay. We will move right back in. Max and Ollie, I can't see who's present, so please chime in and we will facilitate as the best we can. See Max, I see Miro, and Ali. I'm sorry, I had to clear the screen there. The format will be pretty much the same way. The rules are pretty much the same. I think we all understand them, and most people have been very polite about it.
Patrick, I think it would be good to read them again because I don't think they were that clear, actually.
The community guidelines, the goal today is to gain a deeper understanding of the candidates' priorities, policies, positions, and actions.
I'm sorry, I mean the format. That's the part. I think that was
the format. Here we go. Each candidate has a 1-minute opening. Questions will be emailed in advance or in the text box, the chat box. Kevin will review them the best he can as they're coming in and synthesize. The questions may not actually come out exactly as you worded them, but he will try to do his best to respect the nature of it. And please include your name and your ward when asking the questions. Each candidate has a minute to answer the questions with a little latitude given if you're really, it's really not enough sometimes. But we'll try to be equal to everybody. And then maybe a 30-second response as everyone would like, and I'll try to be as fair as possible. when keeping track of little family feud squares here, who gets what. And then at the end of it, 2 minutes for a closing statement. Does that seem fair to everybody? Okay, I'm just going to start. Ali, would you like to go first with an opening statement?
Absolutely. Yes, can you hear me all?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much for having me here in front of all of you, the NPAs of Ward 2 and 3. As you know, my name is Ali Dieng, and I am proud to be running as an independent for mayor of the city of Burlington. Because I believe that our city needs a trustworthy leader with an inclusive vision that can bring people together and transforming this small city as the best small city in America. And my campaign and the campaign of my team, it is all about implementing that vision that is a fair and equitable for the city that works for every single person that live here. And also a city that seeks to eradicate all systems of oppressions, discrimination against people of color, minority groups, a city that strives for sustainable economic development, smart growth, and respect our lake and the environment, as well as the safety of and well-being of the people that live here. And most importantly, fiscal responsibility. We need to reassess and see where we're going, because I think COVID has taught us one thing: we were not ready. And but the community members here are just incredible, and each one of them showed up.
Okay, thanks.
So,
sorry to interrupt you, Ali. We're gonna try to keep it as brief as possible.
So I just cannot. Do you give warnings? 10 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have Molly in your screen? She is our timekeeper.
Okay, Molly. Thank you.
Max, since you're at the top, and I'll go in reverse order at the closing to make it as fair as possible, if you don't mind.
Sure, that sounds great. Well, thanks so much, Patrick, and to the NPA Steering Committee. Really appreciate you bringing us together. This NPA has been an important part of my life for the last 10 years. As an active participant, it's been such a joy to be eating dinner with you month in and month out and getting a chance to really get to know you. I can't wait till we get back to that point. I think that this pandemic has really shown us the value of community and the need for us to emphasize how much strength comes from community. And that's really what drives me to run for mayor. I want to be a mayor that brings our community together around these shared values of equity and justice, and making sure that we are not only addressing the basic needs of our neighbors in the context of this pandemic, but also making real progress on the pressing issues of our time, like the climate crisis that we face, the housing challenges and the unaffordable prices that so many face in our city with housing costs, as well as systemic racism that continues to cause harm to our neighbors of color across our city. And so these are the issues. This will be the focus of my administration, and something that I'm really excited to share my vision with you about tonight.
Perfect, thanks. And Miro, would you like to take your 1 minute?
Unmute, Mr. Mayor.
I apologize. My gosh. Thank you. After all these months. Thank you to the Ward 2-3 NPA for bringing us together tonight. I look forward to a day when we can gather again at your amazing community dinners. But while better times are coming, for now, we continue to grapple with multiple simultaneous crises: a pandemic, a historic recession, a long overdue reckoning on racial justice, and an accelerating climate emergency. Moments like this demand proven leadership. Since last February, I've been driven by the belief that in a global pandemic, local actions matter. Every day since, we have fought the virus as our top priority in the city by, for example, creating a city analytics team to scour the globe for the best science on the virus, deploying millions of local and federal dollars with a focus on protecting the most vulnerable through strategies like creating a new year-round low-barrier shelter, and coordinating with, and when necessary, pushing hard our partners at the hospital, the state, and the colleges. This effort, combined with the incredible sacrifice and vigilance that you all have made, is the reason this community has weathered this crisis as well as any other in the country. If you give me the opportunity to continue to lead this great city, this is the kind of relentless commitment I will bring to our other major crises. I look forward to discussing our plans over the course of tonight.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the first question from Kevin. And Kevin, it may be rhetorical, but if we have questions directed to individual candidates, let's try to be fair and direct. If we get 3 questions each individual candidate, so it's a little bit more deliberative.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
We had a couple email ones. I don't see any.
There was one so far in the chat, but there are a few that were emailed. So we'll start with the top. So this is from Andrew Champagne of Ward 2. As a 25-and-a-half-year resident of the Old North End, safety is my paramount concern. All are concerned with safety in our neighborhood and the downtown. It would be appreciated if the candidates could address the question of safety and present any proposals in this area that they might have.
All righty. We'll start off with Max, if you don't
Thanks for
mind.
the question. Really appreciate it from my neighbor across the street, Andrew. I know that this is important and just in talking with Andrew pretty regularly. And this is something that is certainly a concern. I'm fully in favor of transforming our police force to better meet the needs of our neighbors. And so I think what we need to do is continue to lean into efforts to transform policing in our city by transitioning armed officer roles to more direct social supports aimed at dire community needs like trauma-informed mental health responses, like substance use disorder treatment services, like better street outreach for individuals experiencing houselessness. These are unmet community needs and needs for which officers are not the answer. And I think we need to continue to build out those positions and make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to better meet those needs, because when we do that, we'll create a public safety system that is truly safe for all.
Thank you very much. If anybody's reading the chat box, we've been invaded by piranhas, unfortunately. Hopefully that won't affect the rest of the meeting, which to anybody else, yeah, that's a technical jargon for somebody Zoom bombing us. And I'm going to go clockwise with the answers, if you don't mind. For me, Miro, you would be next. Sorry. Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Andrew, for the question. I think you're totally right. Safety, public safety needs to be one of the very top priorities and concerns of any mayor or really any elected official serving the city. And I am concerned that decisions made by the city council over my objections last summer have put that in jeopardy. I think there were changes made to the police department without a plan. And as a result, we're heading into a period here of real uncertainty about whether we're going to continue to be able to answer all the calls that the people of Burlington make to the police department, the 30,000 calls a year consistently in the way that people of Burlington expect. I have a proposal to address that. It's going to be for the city council in the next couple of weeks here. And I hope this time the council will listen to the concerns being raised by me and the chief and the director of police transformation and be collaborative in finding a way through. I do believe we need significant reform in American law enforcement and in law enforcement here in Burlington. And I've stood for that and worked hard for that for years. And over the course of tonight, perhaps we'll have more opportunities to talk about that, what the transformation that is needed.
Thank you, Miro. Ali, would you like to follow up? Do you need a refresher of that?
Of course, yeah, thank you. I think, the question was specific about police transformation. And I think we have wrongly frame the question. It should not be about the police itself. We have to talk about what we call public safety. We are a college town, 2 universities, we have children, a lot of schools over here. We should not talk about police transformation. And we cannot transform the police by reducing it through attrition. This needs a process that is inclusive to the community members that live here and all stakeholders, such as the businesses. To get there, we have to be sure that we have a police chief And the police chief will be the one who would have, because he has the knowledge and expertise about what policing in the 21st century is, how it should look like, and then based on the values of the community members, he can drive that work in collaboration with the community. And I will always strive for inclusion. I brought so many amendments about the racial justice resolution. So let's talk about this more over the course of this race.
Excellent. Does anyone require any follow-up? Seems like you were all pretty succinct in the answering of that question. It does not look like we're going to be able to have any people type in questions into the chat box anymore. Looks like it's been pretty much saturated. If this hasn't happened to anybody on a Zoom meeting before, it's usually just a lot of hot air coming from somebody. And please don't take it too serious, as you probably could do more damage by following their instructions than not. Kevin, do you have another question we can facilitate? Can't hear you, Kevin.
There we go. Yes. Next question is from Megan Humphrey. Very specifically, what would each of you do to provide better oversight for the city's police department in order to eliminate racism?
And Mr. Mayor, would you like to first answer on that one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. You know, we've had several efforts in the time that I've been mayor that I think are great examples of how you do this work right. First of all, I noticed that the candidates of color who applied to be police officers were made it through the police recruitment and appointment process at a much lower rate than white candidates. And we unpacked every step of the process and made significant changes to the way we recruit and prepare people for the police academy in response to that, and have had some successes in recruiting more diverse officers since. Another great example is we had an issue several years ago with a real racial bias being shown in traffic stops. And we took an analytical attack to that to try to really understand what was going on, broke down the performance of each officer, and then showed each officer what their performance was. And we saw some really dramatic changes and movement in the right direction in the wake of that. And by some measures have made real progress on the bias in those stops. Those are great ways that you actually get into the details and make change.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ali, would you like to go next? Do you need a refresher of the question at all?
Yes, I think the question was about policing oversight, what we will do as mayor. And
okay, good. Just want to make sure. That doesn't eat into your time, but I wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Please stop.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think when we talk about every police should have what we call an oversight body. And currently, the question is a police commission playing that role? And from my perspective, I don't think they are doing it. We need to rethink policing in the 21st century. And to do that, we have to include the community members that are being policed. Through an extensive and lengthy process, we will find the right program, the right oversight for the community of Burlington. I am just against rushing things. I was completely in favor of what Perri Freeman brought forward. It was vetted, it went through a lengthy process, but unfortunately it was vetoed. So as a mayor, I will start the process again, including the police commission, the community member, and like I said before, making sure that it is the police chief who will drive that work and will respond to my administration.
Thank you, Ali. And Max.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Megan. Really appreciate it. It's a really important question because we know we have lots of work to do to address and uproot systemic racism in our city. We have real problems when we have force being used at record levels, as it was in the last year against Black people in our city. When we have disproportionate traffic stops remaining a persistent, for people of color remaining persistent in our city. We know that we need real independent oversight, and that as a part of that, we also need independent investigative authority with subpoena power. And then as a result of those investigations, we need to vest that independent oversight body with real authority to make disciplinary decisions. We've seen the real drawbacks in the last several years of vesting that authority exclusively in the chief. 2 weeks of unpaid leave or unpaid punishment for the incidents that took place did not by any means meet the severity of what was done to those individuals. And so we need, looking at these broader trends and these specific incidents, we need real independent oversight with disciplinary authority.
Okay, any follow-ups required? Mr. Mayor and Ollie, if you'd like to follow up, you're welcome to one as well.
Great, thank you, Patrick. I was hearing Megan's question as about, what is the kind of police work you need to do to bring to address racial bias in policing. Certainly oversight is part of it. And, I believe I was the first elected official to say a year ago that we had a problem in our charter, that our current system vests near absolute authority in the police chief, and that's something we need to change in the charter. I do support reform of the charter. We've got to get it right, though. It's got to be a system that we all can be sure, and the people who are going to need to serve on it can be sure will be fair and impartial. That was why I vetoed the charter change a couple weeks ago. I didn't think we could ensure that, and I thought it would make the problems that I talked about before of not being able to respond to Burlingtonians' calls worse. We're going to keep working on this as soon as the next couple of weeks, and we're going to get it right.
All right, thank you. Ollie, would you like to add any additional comments?
Yeah, other than let's all think about how do we get here? I think it is just because some actions that we were supposed to take as elected officials, we did not. And that ended up having young children during a state of a health emergency camping in our parks. Definitely police oversight is needed, but we should not rush them. And we have to just make sure that those with expertise and knowledge can drive the work, including the community, to get it done.
Okay, thank you. And Kevin, do we have another question pulling from the troves we have?
Yes, we do. Next one is from Jessica House from Ward 3. This is for everybody. Incendiary, antagonistic, and polarizing rhetoric and behaviors seem rampant in politics today at all levels, including within our city. Genuine curiosity, empathy, and thoughtful discourse seem to be lacking. How do you plan to foster spaces within the city's governance for thoughtful discourse and collaboration among those with differing thoughts and perspectives? And to that end, what is something you admire about the perspectives of each of your opponents as you have collaborated with them in our city's governance as councilor or mayor?
Oh, that sounds like two questions.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah.
Well, if you take on both of them, we can allow for a little bit longer period of time.
And bonus points.
Yeah, they're both pretty worthy questions. Ali, would you like to go first? And we'll give you a minute and a half if you tackle both of those questions.
Okay, so I will need your help. And I think all about my administration would be this. I am not an expert, but I would rely on those who know and have the knowledge, expertise in subject matters to help and to drive the work that we need. The most important thing that we need to strive for is to be civil. Currently, we developed a vaccine for coronavirus. And I think the next step is for the hospital to look into a vaccine to help people be civil. In Burlington, we should not be fighting each other. 42,000 people live here, have children here. You go online, it's unbelievable. We need to come together. This is a community first, and we are known with a community mindset to get things done. How do we get here? It is partisan politics most of the time. Local organization, political organization are now driving the agenda. It's no longer the council nor the mayor. It's just people who have voice can speak up. The other aspect of the question, maybe I'll take it as a second
Well, go ahead. Start just, yeah, I believe, Kevin, you want to refer to that second part of the question just to make sure that it's clear.
Yeah, it seems it is like, how do I, the question was specific around what do I like about my opponents, right? Somewhat. Okay. Okay. One thing that I learned about Miro Weinberger, and he helped me understand this, is things take time. We should not rush things and process smarter. And I think this really played out with the Miro on downtown, right? I think just, yeah, bringing people together, getting things done. We're not going anywhere and no one is coming. It's us and we have to solve our problems. What I like really about Max is definitely he can speak up. And I speak up so hard, but sometimes speaking up is not solving the problem. It's all about making sure that what you do not know or understand, other people who do know it and understand, let's collaborate. Collaboration is what I will bring as the next mayor of the city.
Thank you very much, Ali. Max, I'm gonna, do you need a refresher of both of those, or that was fresh in your mind, those two questions?
Yeah, no, I think I got the general gist of it and really appreciate the question. I think that how we involve people is central to our democracy, and we're at a moment where we need to do much more to strengthen our democracy in order to resist the troubling trends that we're seeing on a national level. And so to me, that means really creating more opportunities for direct democracy to take place, whether it's in planning processes or ultimate decision-making authority around budgeting. I think that we really need to do more to empower our citizens around these decision-making processes, whether that can take the form of expanding our MPAs and the authority that those MPAs have, making sure that we're giving them real decision-making power at the neighborhood level, as well as thinking about, as well as exploring a participatory budgeting system where people have real say over how their money is spent. I think there are significant opportunities to expand that more direct democratic participation. I want people to be able to show up as their authentic selves. I think there's a real challenge and balance to that, as I found out in the last year as council president, hosting some of the longest forums in city history. It's been really difficult, and I've wanted to try and strike that very challenging balance between giving people the opportunity to speak their truth while also keeping things respectful in the context of those meetings.
Would you like to share something positive about your two fellow?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I really appreciate Councilor Dieng's work and emphasis around these themes of unity. I think that that's something that I really respect a lot about Councilor Dieng, that he continues to come back to those themes. And then one thing that I've really enjoyed working with the mayor on and have really valued collaboration on has been the opiate crisis. We've as well as our shared goals around walking and biking in the city. We've forged some significant partnership around those issues. So really appreciate both of them on those fronts.
Thank you, Max. Excellent. And Mr. Weinberger, would you care to answer that? Do you need a refresher on any of those?
No, I think I've got it, Patrick. One of the things that I have always loved about Burlington and trying to work in public service in Burlington is that I think we always have had a strong ethic of civility and of working across partisan. We like our politics. We definitely have parties, but we have always been able to work across those boundaries. And we have long had real practices around making sure that new initiatives coming forward are carefully vetted, are opened up broadly to the community, and that all voices that we work to get as many voices as possible. We don't always succeed at getting them all in, but we work to get many voices included in the decision making. I think those have been good ethics, and I do think I think maybe the question is motivated by a sense that there has been some loss of that over recent years, and that there has been greater acrimony and division and polarization and what some call lack of civility. And I am troubled by those trends. I think some of it is driven just by the pandemic that we are in. I think a lot of things are going to get a lot better when we can get back in the same room and talk to each other directly.
With the second part of that question. So
yeah, thanks, Patrick. We should be careful to hold on to those Burlington traditions. Look, I like the others have said, some of the accomplishments I'm proudest of came because of collaboration with the two other people on the screen. So Councilor Dieng, we worked on creating the racial equity, inclusion, and belonging department, and I thought his wisdom and patience in that was outstanding. And you know, Max and I were elected on the same day, almost 9 years ago, and I feel like we've kind of aged together in this in these positions, and I like Max and respect him. We often disagree, but the areas we've been able to come together on, I think we've made substantial progress, in particular around walking and biking. It's a different city now than it was 9 years ago, in part because of that collaboration.
Thank you very much. And Kevin, do we have any other questions?
Yes. So the first one that I'm going to switch back to the questions that came through the chat. This is from Jacob in Ward 3. Give one concrete step that you want to take in the next 6 months to tackle the climate crisis. That's to everyone.
All righty, Max, I would put you first on this question.
Yeah, so we know that we need to make much greater progress to address carbon emissions related to heating as well as transportation. On the heating side, we also know that we have an incredibly old housing stock that is in many ways not well cared for. And specifically that has a direct impact on people across our city who are paying rent as well as heating bills in a lot of those units, and who are responsible for those costs, but who do not have the ability to weatherize. So I am in favor of mandating weatherization of rental units across our city in order to realize greater efficiency benefits and make our units and our housing more livable at the same time.
All righty. And Mr. Weinberger, would you like to follow that one up?
Yeah, no, I would. I mean, I think this is an area of huge accomplishment for the city over decades and over the last 9 years, and an area where there is so much more to do, and we have a lot of exciting things teed up. You know, we do need that weatherization proposal that Max just mentioned. Was an idea that came out of the 2 housing summits that we held in 2019. We presented that idea to the council over a year ago, and I am eager to see the council finish that and get that done and get that implemented. That is an urgent, high priority item. Here's another one that we all can do together right on town meeting day, and that is to pass what I think is really a pioneering decarbonization charter change that would put us on the path to dramatically reducing the amount of fossil fuel infrastructure that is built in new buildings going forward, and eventually give us the tools to convert existing buildings away from fossil fuels. There are very few cities in the country that have done anything like this. You all get a chance to vote on it. I hope you'll support it on town meeting day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Ali.
Yes, I think the most important thing that I feel like the city is not doing very well is to educate, sensibilize the community members here about the importance of this issue. That's very concrete. And also to strengthen the intensives that the Burlington Electric Department are already developing in terms of transportation. You can switch to a new car or heat pump in your home. But I think it would be concerning for so many people in this city if we pass that ballot item around thermal energy, because so many people have been hit so hard by this virus, and it would be imperative to just strengthen the services and program we have in place, and also to look into the future of the plants that is currently being run by wood, which is also not 100% clean energy. Yes.
All right, thanks, Ali. Follow up, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I want to be clear there. I think Ali was opposing the charter change that I just supported because he's concerned about the impact on people's pocketbooks. I want to be really clear, like, that is not what a yes vote will do. A yes vote will give the city the authority to regulate thermal energy, which is something we need to do if we're going to get serious about addressing the climate crisis here in this city. before any new tax or any new fee could be passed on to Burlingtonians, there would be another vote. You would get a chance to weigh in again. And a lot of the early action is going to be focused on developers and new construction.
Thanks. And to be clear, by thermal energy, we're talking about the McNeil plant waste energy, or you're talking
So
about
actually this
Those
is
are two
exciting.
separate-
But this would give the city the ability to regulate all thermal systems in buildings. So it would give us the ability to really nudge buildings away from fossil fuels towards alternative energy.
I didn't want to give any extra platform, just to be clear.
Okay, sorry.
And Max, because those are two issues that perpetually come up.
So I do want to say that I do also support this charter change. I think that it's important that we continue to incentivize and create ways for us to not have additional fossil fuel infrastructure built related to heating. And so I do fully support the charter change. I think it will move us forward in important ways. And I encourage all of you to vote for it on town meeting day. The other piece that I just wanted to address is that I think that we need to build a district energy system. So we know we have lost heat coming out of the McNeil plant. One of the biggest things we can do to address our carbon emissions from heating is to create a district energy system, capturing that heat and using it to heat our homes throughout the homes and businesses throughout the city.
Thank you. And that district heat is what I was referring to. But all righty.
May I have a rebuttal?
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, I think the mayor is correct. Like the yes vote for the thermal energy ballot item will not increase your taxes. But ultimately, that's what it will do over time. The city will come back again requesting for people to switch or be taxed, have a levy tax applied to them. Another element that I have been talking to about the director of the airport. In terms of transportation, any taxi that is at the airport, they should all be taxis that are run by electric cars. Okay. No more fossil fuel parking at our airport.
All right, thank you.
That's concrete.
Kevin, do we have any other wonderful questions from all over the city, probably, not just Ward 2 and 3?
Most likely, but I think this one is actually from the hood. So here's one from another one from Andrea Todd. For everybody, we all have areas of weakness as humans. What are your leadership weaknesses, and how do you envision compensating for those areas?
Okay, and I believe I've lost Ali, right?
Yeah.
You're first. Thank you, Ali. Okay.
Yes, that's a great question. I think that's an amazing question. And I think having the ability to recognize where you're not well, I think it's an act of leadership. And I talked about here earlier how I'm not an expert in everything. But what I can do is to build a team, and I recognize. Also, I am very pragmatic, forward thinking. And I think one thing that's very concrete is my concern about responding to people. I'm very responsive, but sometimes I should not respond to anything that comes in front of me. I think that's something that I need to work on in terms of my leadership skills.
All right, thank you. And Max.
Well, I think that people know that I'm an incredibly passionate person, and that's how I show up in spaces. And I know that that is not the way that everybody communicates. And so I certainly recognize that, and I know that I know that I need to continue to work on how communicating to people in ways that meet them where they are as well. And so I want to say that I think that that's something that is I'm a very values-driven person, and so I think that I really want to make sure that I do everything that I can to maintain my values, but also at the same time to do everything I can to meet people where they are.
The question is, what are your sort of faults did you sort of get that? I'll pass it over to the mayor. I didn't quite hear that, Max, sorry.
Thanks, Patrick. I think I have a tendency to get too deep sometimes into the details of issues and not delegate sufficiently to others, which is something you need to do as a mayor. You can't hope to take on every detail of every issue. I've tried to compensate that over time by surrounding myself with an outstanding team of department heads, a group of individuals that will tell me when I'm wrong and tell me when I need to let others take the lead and do their jobs. I hope I've gotten better at over 9 years, but I can still fall a little victim to that at times.
All righty. Okay, Kevin.
Okay, next up, we have a question from Roxanne Muse. There's a lot to this question, but to summarize it, this is a question for Miro regarding the charter change addressing police reform. So what would you have done differently if you could do it all over? And what is the first thing you'll do as mayor to start making the bold changes I believe you all want? And you all meaning the Progressive Caucus in the council.
Okay, Max, I believe you're first.
Well, I think that with the charter change, it was unfortunate to see that not get onto the ballot this year. I fully supported that charter change, and I think it's incumbent upon us, given the trends that we've seen more generally, but also specifically with regards to how people of color aren't treated with respect or with disrespect within our system, within our policing system right now. And so we need to create a public safety system that works for all. And I think that oversight is crucial for that. And so I want to continue that work on trying to find a proposal that can move forward that has real independent authority over discipline, because I think that will be crucial in order to truly bringing real accountability and transparency and solving the problems that we have seen persist over the last several years but go unaddressed. And it's really unfortunate that this charter change is not on, because it just pushes us back further in terms of being able to really put a solution before the voters. And so I hope that we're able to continue to work on that and get a solution, even if it requires, a special election or additional action.
Thank you. And sorry to interrupt, but we do have the chat room right now is back open for any additional questions for Kevin to facilitate. Thank you, Max. And Miro, would you like to follow up?
Yeah, so the question was, what would I have done differently? I laid out the three major concerns I had about the charter change. One was I thought that it was written in a way that it did not ensure that the justice, the discipline being administered by this new system would be fair and impartial. And I thought that would have a devastating impact on our department and really accelerate these troubling trends we've seen, where we will soon really have trouble answering all the calls that Burlingtonians make and sufficient and providing the public safety services that people of Burlington expect. That needs to change. I think there needs to be a clearer role. The chief was cut entirely out of the discipline process, or nearly entirely. I thought that was a problem. I also thought there should be a role for the mayor in the discipline process. Certainly, we've seen that the public holds the mayor accountable for these issues. The mayor should have a formal role. In terms of what I would do, I've already laid out there it was very hard to veto that. It was not something I wanted to do. So I laid out in my veto letter the steps that we would take to keep making immediate progress on this issue. Some things don't need to wait for a charter change. Perhaps I have a chance to speak more about it with more time later.
Thank you, Mayor. And Ali, would you like to go? How would you do things differently?
Yes, I think the most fundamental aspect about the issue of the police here is just a lack of transparency and also a lack of action. We have been just reacting, which is not what leaders should do. Leaders should act and act at the right time. If we took really good care of Black children being victimized in the city street, then we would not have been here today to talk about the police. I think action matters, and they speak more than words. Vision, it's what it is about. What would I do differently? Is basically just to make sure that the police culture has changed. And as a leader, I understand also what they go through every single day. We do not know what police officers go through, and I want to learn that. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Max, did you go? Sorry, trying to read. All set? All righty. Kevin.
Yep. So next up is one from the chat feed from Isaac Bissell. Do you see a conflict between the city's climate goals and the planned expansions to the airport?
I believe, Mayor, you are next.
Yeah, thank you. Listen, I support our airport. I think our airport is a tremendous resource for this community. If we didn't have this airport, we would not be nearly as prosperous a community as we are. And I fully support the planned investments to continue our decades of modest growth and expansion there. I understand certainly the emissions from jets is something to be concerned about, but I also think we got to put it in perspective. And the votes that have been made by this council, and including some of my colleagues here tonight, or this is definitely an area that Max and I have differed in, I think would really badly hurt the airport for very minimal climate benefits. Airport emissions make up a tiny percentage of Vermont's climate emissions, and to basically want to abolish the airport over those emissions, I think is completely the wrong approach and is not one I would take.
Okay, thank you. And Ali, would you like to respond to the question?
Yep. Thank you. I think it's another great question by people of the Old North End, smart people. I think what I want to see in terms of our airport is what currently exists there. Currently, the airport has a hub in building airplanes or helicopters that are powered by clean energy. I want to make sure that the city of Burlington will strengthen what currently happens. And also we will lead the rest of the nation and make Burlington a hub in terms of how do we fight climate change. It's not only about the airport, but it's also the surrounding communities. And I think it would be important to have the real conversation. Do we need the F-35 here? I want to keep them in Vermont, but is the airport the right place to keep them there? I think those are two concrete stuff that I want to do in terms of climate change about the airport.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Ali. And Max.
Thanks so much for the question. I think it's crucial that we examine and reduce all emissions related to transportation. We know that this continues to be an area where we're just not making enough progress. And so I think it's a real flaw within our net zero planning that we did not do more to include strategic planning around how to reduce emissions at the airport. I think that some of the moves towards expansion of the airport do contradict or go against those goals, and that we need to be thinking of ways that we can strategically get those emissions under control, so continue and bring them down over the next several years in a big way, because absent that, we're facing climate catastrophe, and we need to be having all of these different types of emissions addressed. And that also applies to the F-35, which is one of the bigger sources of emissions and fossil fuel usage, on a pretty regular basis. And so we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to resist the F-35s as well, because they're a climate disaster.
Okay, thank you, Max. And I would like to add noise more than anything for those F-35s. Mayor, you would like a follow-up response?
I would, Patrick. I do want to talk a little bit about the issue Ali just raised about Beta, which is this pretty remarkable company that is at the airport that does hold great promise for transforming the airline industry flight over time towards electrification. We have taken very strong and aggressive steps to support that startup company and help it grow and get established here. And I'm very hopeful that you're going to see that flourish further. That could become part of this larger strategy of strategic electrification that Burlington really is a pioneer of, which from my perspective hasn't gotten enough focus and attention as a comprehensive solution to climate change. Strategic electrification, which Burlington is leading the way on, is the way to address a great percentage of our overall climate emissions.
Thank you, Miro. Just to chime in quickly, sorry, Ali, I'll give you a second to respond again. We have been trolled again. A Zoom troll has attacked us. So please be mindful if you're scrolling through that these are not reflective comments of our community.
What's the username?
Max Tracy.
We're deleting them as they come up. It seems to be the same person
Okay.
coming in.
Just so people understand who aren't necessarily familiar with troll.
Cool.
There's a lot from, yeah. So sorry, Ali, to interrupt the flow of the conversation. Would you like your response?
Yeah, it will be, and it will be very quick. And I think the Miro is right, that Beta is doing an amazing job, and it's just a start right now. But strengthening it will go a long way. And earlier I talked about in terms of making sure that all the taxis that are currently at the airport need to be given a mandate. Basically, but in 5 years, they all have to switch to electric cars, right? Otherwise, they won't be able to park there. And how do we also have that conversation with the rental companies that are there as well?
Okay, thank you. Kevin, sorry to interrupt you.
All good. So there's one question that I think will bring us to the end of this spot that I think is a good one to end on. This one came over email, and it's to everybody. Please talk about your management or leadership experience and how you plan to use that experience to lead Vermont's largest city.
Okay, and I'm sorry, who is next? I cannot multitask to save my life.
I think it will be me.
Oh, Ali, would you like to go
Yeah.
first? Thank you.
Okay. My leadership, I mean, maybe I'm the only one of these candidates who has an accent that is very strong, which means that I came here only 13 years ago. And today I'm in front of all of you, seeking for your vote to be the next mayor of the great city of Burlington. I think that only speaks to my leadership and to also my achievement. No English, 13 years ago, I created programs and projects that just help people to get better. Without a political party or backbone organization, I accomplished so much that I don't think my opponent, if we were in Africa, they would be able to accomplish. And I have done it all through collaboration, bringing people together and being civil. And that's what I would want to continue as the next mayor of this city. Thank you.
All righty. And Max.
Yeah, so I've been on the council for the last almost 9 years at this point, and during that time, I've been just taken a deep dive into all the different aspects of of city government, participating in 9 different budget cycles and involving myself in a wide range of different committees that have lots to do with that have familiarized me with the inner workings of all the different departments of city government, and just the crucial work that they do and how that is directly linked to the delivery of city services that people depend on. And so that's going to be a crucial thing coming out of this pandemic, is making sure that we are really prioritizing and those direct basic city services and making sure that they continue, and that we're also working closely with our employees, many of whom are bargaining unit employees. And as someone who has significant union and labor experience, I know how to work directly with folks in the labor movement in order to make sure that we're meeting mutually beneficial goals.
Excellent, thank you. And Miro.
Management is a huge part of the job of being mayor of Burlington. It's in our city. It isn't like this in every city. In our city, the mayor is the chief executive officer. And that means at the end of the day, the mayor needs to manage more than 600 full-time employees. It swells to almost 1,000 employees with seasonal workers and a budget. If you assemble all our budgets, it's $200 million on an annual basis. For 9 years, those have been my responsibilities. It is a hard management job. The mayor has more than 20 direct reports. That's the structure that I inherited, and that's very challenging. I've worked very hard at it and built a really good management team. And I do think this is one of the questions in this race that voters need to ask themselves is right now, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a deep recession, is this the time to move away from tested, proven leadership? It's because of that management experience that Peter Clavel, former mayor, endorsed me earlier today. And I hope all voters will consider that as they're weighing their choices this election.
All righty. Those all sounded like closing statements. But if you all would like a closing statement on top of that, then feel free. Unless there is another question. Kevin, I think that was pretty much it, right?
Yeah, there's a lot more, but I thought that would be a good transition into the closing statements.
Yeah, those were sort of closing statements. But yeah, would any of the candidates like to add a official closing statement?
Well, I think, was I supposed to go first on the closings, Patrick?
I do believe yes.
So you're right. There will be some similarities, but I would like to just say a few more words. First, I want to thank Ali and Max for this discussion tonight. I'm looking forward to spending a lot more time on Zoom screens together over the next 7 weeks. As a community, over the last 9 years, we have been through so much together, and together we've met every test. When I first came into office, the city was in trouble at the edge of junk bond status, and over the years, through a series of ballot items and important initiatives, we rebuilt our AA credit rating and locked in more than $17 million in rising of taxpayer and ratepayer savings. With that financial foundation secure, we've been able to make massive infrastructure investments into our sidewalks, our streets, our parks, and our water resource systems that protect the lake. And we've launched groundbreaking new initiatives that the city never did anything like them before to ensure equity and protect the most vulnerable, including new housing options for people experiencing homelessness, high quality childcare scholarships for low income children, and new resources for combating the opioid crisis as aggressively as any community in the country. All of this while keeping municipal tax rates increases lower than the rate of inflation. And in 2020, the most challenging year in local government in generations, we fought and contained the virus as well as any community in America, while also forging meaningful progress on racial justice and addressing the climate emergency. Not everything's gone smoothly or has happened as quickly as we hoped. However, my administration has the persistence and the commitment to keep working at problems until they are fixed. After long years, or in some cases, decades of trying, today we have a beautiful new bus station. City Hall Park has been revitalized, and the Moran frame is now, at long last, in construction. In this election, amidst multiple simultaneous crises, the city faces a clear choice: to continue forward with a proven, experienced team that has, in partnership with you, the people of the city, completed all this and much more, or return to the type of leadership that created such trouble a decade ago. With your renewed support on town meeting day, I will apply this experience and commitment to the challenges ahead. Together, we will fight racism as a public health emergency, finish the job of restoring a vibrant neighborhood on the long troubled site of the former mall, and continue on our path towards becoming America's first net zero energy city.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You've done a great job. And Ali, would you like to?
I think it's Max, because I started earlier.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What?
Max.
So I appreciate that, and I just want to thank the Wards 2-3 NPA for all your work in hosting this. It's great to be here tonight and to have a chance to discuss these issues. It's been a great discussion, and I'm certainly excited to continue that conversation over the next several weeks. I think that what this pandemic has shown us is that we have a need to not only address the basic needs of our neighbors to make sure that we're providing for everyone and not leaving anyone behind in this, because this has only exacerbated the challenges that we face as a community. That during this time where we have this need to provide immediate and direct relief to so many. I was absolutely heartbroken a couple of weeks ago to go to a food distribution event where we had to turn away dozens of cars because there was just simply not enough. And that's the reality of this moment, where we need to really ground city government in addressing the basic needs of folks, not only during this pandemic, but coming out of this pandemic, because that is going to be part of the bold, transformative change that we need as a city. We need a different direction to address the housing crisis that we face as a city, one that does not rely on the market to solve our problems, but one that sees city government as being directly able to rein in the high cost of housing in our city. We need to also take bold, decisive action to confront the climate crisis that is directly impacting our community in really horrendous ways, making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to address carbon emissions related to heating and transportation. And then also we have to redouble our efforts to uproot systemic racism, creating a public safety system for all that is truly safe by leaning into efforts to transform public safety, but not taking our eye off the ball of economic and cultural empowerment for BIPOC individuals in our community, because that also has to be a crucial focus. Bringing these efforts together will require a different approach, and I'm prepared to bring it. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. And Ali for the last statement of the Mayor Forum.
Thank you. One request, please make sure that you tell me that my time is up. Otherwise, I will keep on.
Well, I'm trying to be fair to everybody. So even after,
wonderful.
You can't see Molly.
So I think, thank you. I think the mayor's closing statement was very clear and transparent. And I think a tested leadership, to me, it's nothing other than being transparent, being able to listen, and also to be in touch with the people. I think Burlingtonians are tired and people are ready for change. I believe that Burlington deserves a leader who is not entrenched in partisan politics or who is not in touch with the people of this great city. A leader who is willing to do the hard and necessary work to move our city forward. Burlingtonians, they want a government that can be trusted to do the right things when no one is looking. A government that is transparent and clear, a government that cares enough, and a government that can even start the healing. Community members are tired. They want to build unity around our community. And reason why I'm running for mayor. I also believe that Burlington is ready for change. And that change should be a transparent change, a unified change, and a change geared around action on things that matter. The change that will also create our dream, the change that will leave a legacy to our kids, and also vulnerable people are protected. I invite you all to please visit my website, alidieng.com, get involved, and let's have the hard and necessary conversation until March 2nd, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you for having us again.
Okay, thank you, Ali. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to allow any follow-ups to those closing statements. And thank you again, and good luck to all. And we're going to move on with our meeting.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Kevin.
And Barbara, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
You have one more to facilitate, Patrick. The school.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yep, I don't have the agenda brought up in front of me. I'm trying to read too many things at once. And
it's my turn.
It's your turn. And you can't be the only one running. You're not running against yourself, are you?
I have an internal struggle. So kind of, but no. I'm running unopposed. Do you mind if I segue in, Patrick, on the interest of time?
All yours.
Thank you. I just want to appreciate whoever asked the question about faults as the leader. I think it is incredibly important that whoever becomes our mayor in the future feels comfortable with being vulnerable, realizes what a strength it is in knowing when you're wrong and apologizing, because you can't make something better if you don't know that you made a mistake, right? So that's the first step. And with that said, as somebody who is serving on the school board, I am signing up again because mainly, even though this will be my third time on the ballot, it's only about 2.5 years. And it is just the beginning of even understanding what entails this role. So I feel like I just got my feet wet and I'm invested. But with that said, my fault is that I'm not psyched about doing all of this stuff on Zoom. I would much rather be, I pretty much ended up here because I really like having the conversations about how people are sincerely impacted, and I organized ways that people could interface and problem solve, connecting folks that had issues with people in the district that could address them. And it's not the same right now, but I do feel like I can move forward with whatever platform we have to do it on. But just a little bit about me. My name is Jeannie Waltz, also Jean. I have lived in the Old North End for over 30 years. I've been an art teacher at Rock Point School, which is a private, nonprofit, alternative high school boarding right here in Burlington. And I've owned a house in the Old North End. Well, first I helped form a small co-op on Decatur Street for 9 years. And now I've been in my house for, oh my God, since like 2002, CHT house. So one of the perspectives I've been bringing to the board is, not making a lot of money and living in a tight-knit community that does not speak English as a first language, and enduring things like being called hun every day at the corner store, which I adore. And
thanks. I don't mean to interrupt you, but in case, I want to make sure in case we have any questions.
Okay.
Who are you? Because since you're running unopposed, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the school system, we could allow for a question.
Hey, and Patrick, if we want to invite the other commissioners, Polly and Stephen are on the line. And the next thing, question just for me, that's fine. But if it's a larger,
my mistake. We're allowing. I can tell by the look in Barbara's face that I'm jumping ahead to the next portion of our agenda.
Since you're running unopposed, you can take questions as part of the school board report. The school commissioners have asked for 15 minutes, and unless there are questions in the chat for Jeannie,
I think the chat was turned off.
Oh, I don't know. I put something in there, but anyway.
I have a question. How many hours would you say you spend in a month to be on? Does any one counselor put in to their volunteer position?
I would say it's more like a weekly thing. It's probably about 10 to 15 hours a week.
And how hard is it to, if you were going to start this job from scratch, you won the election and start from the ground up, how much time do you have to start in your first couple weeks? You have to start
It's
extra
more
attention?
intense. There's a lot of trainings, a lot of reading to do, a lot of things to get up to speed. It was more like a part-time job for the first, I would say, like 8 months. And then it was more about understanding. So there's like this framework that you work off of, and then there are all the nuances that are attached to like these different things, like everything from even knowing stuff about Robert's rules to how legislation works. I mean, I'm still grappling with how the tax system works.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
And does the city provide you a lot of training? Or do you have to figure it out as you go along? Sorry, Barbara's giving that face. I was trying to be a little bit more interactive.
You're the facilitator. You don't need to be interactive.
Well, because it was unopposed and I wanted to provide at least.
I just want to say, Patrick, there's no list of like trainings that we go to or stuff that we have to do. But as the board and as one of the reps on the board, I did set up a training for the board to learn to do something with Outright Vermont. And I also coordinated with Max for the board to join the city council's meeting on open meeting laws. And I'm hoping to actually have more conversations with the city council so that the board and the city council can combine trainings so that we pool resources. Like one way to spend taxpayer dollars, we all have to go to the same trainings. And we can all do it from Zoom. We figured that out. So why are we paying more? Why are two separate entities doing similar trainings for something? So that's one resourceful thing that I brought to.
Thank you very much. And the whole point of that was to alert anybody who is participating via Zoom that these positions are unpaid and they're not easy positions. And yeah, I'm glad people do it.
But I have to say it's incredibly rewarding, Patrick. I'm not here as some sort of a...
Nope. Yep. It was more to encourage other people in the future so they understood when they ran for school board what they were looking forward to, and then the inequities that maybe you will fix so it'll be easier for the next person. Okay. Oh, okay. I spoke way too much.
Okay. Are we ready to win the candidates forum then?
We can.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick. And thank you, Molly, for timekeeping. And Kevin for feeding questions. Well done.
Thank you, Jean.
Since we have Jeannie Waltz up, are the other two school commissioners here? I can't tell. Because they asked for, the three of them together asked for 15 minutes on the agenda.
They told me they're attending. They need to be made panelists.
Yep.
What are the names that
there's Polly waving her hand.
Polly Vanderputten and Stephen Carey.
And Carey, yeah.
I just moved them both to panelist.
Sweet.
Okay, so you have 15 minutes if you still need it, starting now.
Do we want to start with questions or an overall report?
Let me begin. May I begin? Can you hear me?
Please. Yeah. Yes,
well,
Stephen.
I just want to say Jeannie is fantastic. Okay, so whether anyone's running against her or not, she's a winner, and we're so happy to have her on board. Her voice and her perspective is really, really valuable. We love her. And in terms of that other question, it's a huge job. It's a full-time job. I'm a retired teacher, and I asked myself, why am I still working as basically a teacher? But it is very rewarding, and it's enormously time consuming. It's extremely confusing. And I will admit, I am learning. I've been on for a year longer than Jeannie has. I've learned something every single day. I ask myself why I'm doing this. And I say, well, I am charged too by the work that we're asked to do. And I'm dedicated to improving education in Burlington. And it's fascinating, but it's also very difficult. So I could give you some information, and I'll just kind of outline it, and then Jeannie and Polly can chime in too. But I could talk about a bunch of different things. There's a lot going on as usual. Principal Green's resignation, the COVID crisis, the downtown BHS update, what we're doing with the budget right now. This is budget season. It's very complicated. I just have some information I can give you about that. And then we have, I would like to remind people of what the superintendent's goals are, and then talk a little bit about committee work that's been happening this week. Can't cover it all. Not sure where you want to begin, or Polly or Jeannie, where do you think we should begin? What would you like to hear? Let me
it's hard to, because we have a big audience to
Okay.
let them know what you want to hear, but I certainly would like to hear about the high school renovation and the Macy's thing and the COVID and all that.
Let me just give you an update on the COVID, and then I'll let my other two commissioners talk too, okay? So you know that, at first we had no COVID cases in Burlington. We were so proud of that. And then things started to fall apart a little bit after Halloween, I think it was. You know that what happened, right now, there have been 28 COVID cases associated with the schools. But in each case, there's a very rigorous protocol that the superintendent follows and the schools follow. Number one, it's announced to the community immediately. And then with guidance and recommendations from the Vermont Department of Health, the procedure that the school needs to go through is followed. Superintendent Flanagan puts out information, some of you may have seen this, to everyone concerned about the impact and the adjustments that are recommended by the Department of Health. He reminds everyone of the policies and procedures that are recommended. And I guess the point I want to make is that the public associated with the outbreaks are very well informed about exactly what's happening, what the danger is, if any, and what's going to happen in the school. In some cases, the schools have shut down a day or two. In some cases, 1 or 2 classes have been quarantined. But again, right now, we just got another update yesterday that we had our 28th case yesterday. The issue in the schools is you can imagine what it's like, because if a teacher has symptoms and can't be there, the situation is that teachers are scrambling to cover what needs to be done on a daily basis in the school. And this is true all around the state, but it's of course true in Burlington as well. So it's a very much an ongoing, serious issue that is being dealt with in very precise and logical and scientific ways, of which I am very proud. And I don't think that anything that the district has done is expanding the contagion of the COVID-19 at this point. Well, that's all I wanted to say about COVID-19. So I don't know what else.
There's a question in the chat from Kevin, which I will try to bring up. He asks, the fiscal needs for belt tightening has been an annual point of every year without COVID. What are your thoughts on years prior compared to now?
I guess we could talk about budget development. We just, all three of us were at a finance committee meeting. Someone asked the questions about, the commitments per the week. This week has been incredibly busy, multiple board meetings and committee meetings. And we just finished at I think it was 6 o'clock, a finance committee meeting. I have a few things I could say, Jeannie and Polly, shall I?
That meeting ended at 7, by the way.
Oh, it ended at 7. Okay, I lost track. Okay, I will say that yes, we're in a serious issue with the budget this year because of many factors. But we learned on Tuesday night that Superintendent Flanagan and his cabinet, which are his leaders, he meets and discusses all issues with, have really worked hard to find incredible reductions to the expenditures. And I'll tell you, quite frankly, I don't understand the complexity of all the numbers. And if anyone really wants to know how to look at the presentations that we get, we have a director of finance named Nathan Lavery, who is incredibly articulate and incredibly knowledgeable of everything regarding the budget. It's incredible what he knows and how he tries to explain it to us. And some we understand it to varying degrees of complexity. But you know, the information is available to anyone who is a numbers person who wants to look. You can email me and I'll tell you how to get to that, because the information is presented at the board meeting with all the terminology, all the numbers, all the percentages, everything, which really a lot of it goes over my head. But the bottom line is, we were originally looking at, what was the percentage increase, Jeannie or Polly? Do you remember?
13. Well, the proposed potential before anybody actually started crunching the numbers was as high as 13%.
And that came from the state.
Yes.
Right.
Not a Burlington. This is basically the state advising us on what numbers we're going to have to work with.
Yeah, so we were up to a possible 13% ask. And through the work of the superintendent and his cabinet, it has the percentage increase. The last number that we saw is 7.15%. And of that, only 1% represents the increases that we're asking in Burlington to support the needs in the district. So it's really an unfair, it's unfair to think of it as 7.15% when it's really only 1% that we're proposing to increase for Burlington. We heard today. Go ahead.
And I can talk about what that increase was.
Yes, please.
You know, at our last meeting, the board accepted a recommendation for the multilingual liaisons to be in a 12-year contract. And by the way, this is something that's actually overdue. They have been working 12 months around the year with a contract that was 9. So this is the district actually acknowledging, stepping up, compensating them. And I mean, I don't even know how to say this, but we cannot do the work that we need to do legally, morally, neighborly, period, without them being in contract for 12 months out of the year. So that was accepted by the board emphatically. And the superintendent has all along said that this will be a new addition to our budget. And I really hope that everybody who's hearing about this understands how much it has been vetted, thought out, and is more than worthy, more than overdue, more than necessary. So yes, we are going to ask for a little bit more money. And Stephen, didn't you just say it's like 1% of the budget?
Yeah.
And for us to have multilingual liaisons for 12 months out of the year, I mean, or I should just say all year, for 1% of the budget, I really hope everybody is like, that's awesome.
And I'll say that, you know, I'll say that that's a result of Jeannie's work on the DE&I committee. And well, it is Jeannie, you and Monica and
Auden, yes. Auden introduced this. Of course, we completely supported him, but this is mostly Commissioner Haji's. He was the one that spearheaded this entire effort.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There's one more question in the chat, and we'll probably end with that. And that it's a question about how have students been involved in giving their feedback on the transition to the Macy's building? Are they involved in the design or any of that?
Yes, well, yes, they are, because Superintendent Flanagan makes certain that he involves everyone in our community, including the students, in terms of decisions that he makes. So I know he has a student panel that he's met with several times. I know that's just with the students. I know he's met with other people involved, the students were involved, and I think Claire Wool is in on this too, Chair Claire, you know, of the school board. She, I know that they've met with the students and the Seahorse Pride group, I think, to determine what they wanted to call the high school. The planning for the interior was pretty much designed by architects, but I know that students and community members have been involved in every phase of just about everything that's happened since we've hired the new superintendent in July. Is that right, Polly? I think so, right?
Yep, and I would also say that there are so many things going on at the same time. This is meant to be a temporary kind of place, right? Like this is a place that students are moving into. So it's like how to make it the best temporary place while we figure out a more permanent location. So there's input on that, but then there's also this idea in mind that we still need input too on the renovations that are happening at BHS and what that is going to look like. And if that's still going to happen, that's still being determined because it takes a really long time to test properly for the PCB levels and the toxins that are at the high school. So there are multiple levels to this, but I would agree that there has been a lot of community involvement. And if nobody knows about this yet, there's something now called Lunch with Tom that's happening on Wednesdays at noon. I think the next one is January 20th, and it's a Zoom meeting. There were links that were sent out. If anybody needs us to post it again to Front Porch Forum, we can. I went to the one last week, and that was an opportunity for a lot of community input directly to Superintendent Flanagan and to the communications director. And there were a lot of great questions asked. And it seemed to me like teachers, community members, administrators, board members, there were all kinds of people at that meeting. It's very much open to the public. So,
thank you very much. Thanks, Polly. We're kind of out of time. I just need to compliment you. In all the years that I've been involved with the NPA, which is well over 15 years, you are the most involved, informative, attending school board members we've ever had. And I, for one, really appreciate it. I also hope that you come back next month and request more time. There's so much going on with the schools. I think you need more time than 15 minutes. So maybe request a half hour next time if there's still all this stuff, because it's really important. So thank you.
And Barbara, I need to let you know, this is a very welcome, user-friendly NPA format. Everybody's so thorough and so inviting. It's a pleasure to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. Thank all three of you for your participation and for all your work. I'm going to
Barbara.
You're welcome.
You're very the state legislatures always go last, and I'm going to put them first this time. So, and Brian, you always go last. So I'm going to ask you to go first if you have a presentation to make, Brian. Sheena.
Hello. Yeah, even when I was a school board member, I always had to go last too. And have to like rush through, like when like our superintendent, we went through 3 superintendents in 1 year and had the school budget fail repeatedly. And I would have 5 minutes to try to explain that to you by myself. So I'm glad that the NPA learned that the school board deserves equal time to other elected representatives. So on that note, I'm only going to take a minute because this really isn't an adequate time. Some of us are planning to have a longer state rep meeting. It's going to be, this is being worked out just now as we were sitting here waiting, but it looks like it's going to be Sunday, January 24th, 4 to 5 p.m. So we'll post some more info about that where we can get into more information. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Representative Mulvaney-Stanek. So I guess what I'll just say is it's been an exciting start to the session already. The joint resolution we passed last week was condemning the violent attacks on the Capitol building and calling for the resignation or removal of President Trump for inciting those attacks. And then we've all been assigned to our committees. I'm on the healthcare committee again. And right now our committees are in learning mode, sort of acquainting new members and hearing reports on the impact of COVID. So that's sort of what's going on. We've just started a week ago. I'd like to talk more about some of the things I'm working on, but there's not a lot of time. So I might just hand it over to other people, and I invite others to join us for a prolonged discussion on Sunday, January 24th from 4 to 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Keisha, I heard that you were going to be here, but I don't see you on the screen. Are you here? Keisha Ram?
She was unable to make it. She had a conflict. She will be here in February.
Okay, then Emma, you're next.
Great, thank you. And I'll just build off where Brian we didn't script this, but I'll try to build off of that. So it's been a wild start as a new state legislator. It's a very long days, and it's all by Zoom, which is sort of like wandering through a cave with no headlamp. It's really kind of wild, and I appreciate the Speaker of the House is on here tonight. She's from the Old North End, Jill Kowinski, of course, and she'll speak, but I just want to publicly acknowledge the mammoth task of leading 150 people virtually through a sort of unprecedented time. So thank you, Jill, for that leadership. So just very briefly, so just a reminder, I represent Chittenden 6-2, which is half of Ward 3, and then it goes all the way up to Ethan Allen Park and Letty Park in the New North End. So it's a hybrid district of the Old North End and New North End, and it's a 1-seat district. I was assigned to the Commerce and Economic Development Committee, and that's a committee that sounds a little dry, but actually I'm learning quickly it's quite important because all COVID relief funds go through there or have been going through there. There's a third round underway. Unemployment insurance gets reviewed by that committee. Workers' comp gets reviewed by that committee. So a workers' lens, which I'm truly committed to, I think is going to be really important to those committee discussions to make sure there's a worker relief perspective added into conversations, and it isn't just around business relief and industry relief. So far, I've been meeting lots of new people and learning lots of new acronyms, which I will not bore you with, but I would just entice you all to join us on January 24th. I'm happy to talk about 4 bills I have in the works. I'll just leave that as a teaser so that you have reason to tune in, as well as some collaborations with other both capital P and small p progressives in the House. I'm really excited to be there. I really welcome folks to reach out. It's been great engaging constituents, so do not be shy. My email is in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Unless there are any questions, can you see any?
No,
Okay.
I don't see anything for them, no.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to move on to the City Council. Brian Pine, we have
Actually,
not heard
Barbara,
your
I'm sorry. There's Selena and Jill are on. I'm sorry. Other state reps. Thank
Sorry,
you.
I was just told you weren't going to be on. So Representative Kowinski, congratulations. And what do you have for us?
Hi, Barbara. Thank you. It's great to see all of you. It's been an incredible roller coaster ride this last week for sure. I'm so proud to have been elected Speaker of the House, and I'm really excited to be serving with such a great delegation from Burlington. You know, as I was sworn in, I was talking about the incredible work we have to do to create a COVID recovery plan that leaves no one behind. And that a lot of that work focuses on problems that we already were working on before, were only made worse because of the pandemic, like access to broadband, childcare, and affordable housing. And we need to continue our work around climate change and social equity and justice. You know, I would be remiss if I just didn't bring up the horrible events that have happened in Washington and the threats on our democracy. And I was proud that within 24 hours of learning that, the House joined in the call and passed a resolution calling on the president to either be removed from office or to resign. There are threats on our Capitol given the pushback and retaliation, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're putting public health and safety first, and that everyone is safe in these incredibly trying times. So yeah, it's been hard, but we are here for you. Representative McCormick wishes he could be here tonight. He's recovering from surgery and he is doing well, I'm happy to report. And for our school board members, I want you to know that we're working really hard on getting that money for the high school and the budget adjustment. So we're working on it. And I'm thinking of you and thankful for your service. I know it's been really hard. So I'm looking forward to being with you on this journey, and I'm always available by email or by phone. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Jill. Celine?
Thanks. It's really nice to be here, and I'll try to be quick because I know it's late. I think we're well over our time here on this agenda at this point. But so I think others have covered a lot of things, including the legislators' response to the attack on the Capitol. but I'm Selena Colburn. I'm with Brian Chena, represent the Chittenden 6-4 district. I actually live in Ward 1, but I'm always really thrilled and happy to be at this NPA. And I think the thing that I just want to say, rather than try to get into detail on any one issue, is that in my work as an individual and in the work in the House Progressive Caucus that some of us are members of, I think we're really focused on trying to think about what a COVID response that is equitable looks like, that doesn't sort of just take us back to status quo and call that victory, but that really looks at what are the systems of oppression, of economic injustice and inequity that got us to this place where the pandemic has laid so much inequality bare. So I think, there's a tension right now, I think, in the legislature between wanting to be cautious and recognize that these are hard times to govern in and that it's hard times for everyone around. But I think we do need to commit to some really big changes in the legislature, whether that's, continuing to push for a robust paid family leave program, or for livable wages, or for reparative work that will really address some of the racial inequities and deep harms that have been caused in our state. So I could go on, but I think my message about the lens that I want to bring to the work of the legislative session is to not shy away from big shifts and big change, and to really roll up our sleeves and try to change the world we live in, because I think we're seeing that for a lot of folks, it's just not working.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. And I'm going to shift to the City Council now. Brian Pine.
Thanks, Barb. It is really late, and I just want to say I'm Brian Pine, Ward 3. My focus tonight was really going to be on the fact that the whole community is facing some tough decisions around how we're going to handle public safety going forward as a community. And I want to just highlight that the City Council and the Police Commission and the administration together are moving forward to look at the issues of public safety through a process that has a joint committee looking at these issues. But I have to just say that we all received a mailing this week regarding the situation, and I think it was extremely misleading. And it was a case of people trying to be advocates for their position, but while using misleading data. And just want to call out real quickly that a commission member, Dr. Stephanie Seguino, has presented data that's actually based on the facts that were presented by the chief of police regarding calls for service, regarding crime rates, all the different types and classifications of crime. And in fact, the data shows that there's been a pretty steady decline in calls for service without even counting 2020 as an anomaly. The data shows that if we compare the past years to 2019, that calls for service overall have declined by 23% from 2016 to 2019. And while that flyer that reached everybody by mail leaves the impression that somehow lots of violent crime is increasing, I think it's really important to just highlight these facts. From 2012 to 2019, there's been no increase in homicides, no increase at all, a 37% decrease in robberies, and a 43% decline from 2012 to 2020, a 73% decline in burglaries, a 34% decline in sexual assaults, a 55% decline in larceny from buildings, and a 23% decline in domestic disturbances. And the reason why I bring this up is because we are, as a community, trying to have a really focused debate, a debate based on hard data, not just on what we think is best in terms of preserving our own interests and preserving the status quo. And I ask everybody to stay informed, stay open-minded. I'll be sharing this data because Dr. Seguino sent me a message that she was going to post on her own Front Porch Forum, and hope that people spread this information throughout the city, because it's really important that we have the facts when we're making these decisions. And as your counselor in Ward 3, I will not sit by while people misrepresent the facts in order to advocate for their position. In fact, I think we need to have debate about what's the right way forward, but we need it to be grounded in actually being honest and being candid and being upfront with each other about what is happening. And the one area that has seen a steady, significant increase in calls is mental health crises. The one thing that police admit they're not well trained and well equipped to deal with, and the one area where if we reinvest our resources in handling mental health crises, we can have a real, meaningful, positive impact for the people most impacted. So I would just ask folks to not be fooled by the misinformation that's out there, and to stay informed. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Perri, do you have anything you want to add?
Thank you, Brian, for looking into that, the data. That's super helpful. I really appreciate you bringing, speaking on that. Can everyone hear me, by the way? I took my headphones off, but.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to, someone asked a question about the status of the assessment of BPD and some of the RFPs, and I am serving on the joint committee. So I just wanted to update that we are looking to finalize the contract on the community engagement portion shortly, but we selected on the other contract for the audit of the department, but that contract is still sort of in flux. So the council, by way of the joint committee, is we are working through that issue. It's just kind of going through the bureaucratic hoops, so to speak, right now. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to speak to, which was, I think this keeps coming up a lot. So also, I'm just only speaking about policing and public safety issues. What's the majority of the questions tonight? I know there are a lot of other issues to talk about, but I feel like it's an important one to keep talking about. So the other thing that came up was someone was asking about why the proposal on the charter change had a new body instead of the police commission. And I just wanted to explain the rationale for why I had written it that way. And then also just, I think, and I can chat with the steering committee for the NPA, but I think maybe we should just, I know we're at the next meeting probably talking about charter changes and this isn't going forward, but I do hope that we get time as an NPA to talk about it, because I know folks have a lot of questions and want to be able to get feedback. But the reason why I created a new body, I'm okay with it just being one body, was because I feel like there were a few reasons. Mainly, I felt like I was most concerned that adding additional tasks to the police commission, which already has a ton of work to do, would just simply make it would be overwhelming. It's an overwhelming amount of work. And so I think having a body that's only dedicated to oversight would just allow us to make sure that they had the capacity to do that work, period. I'm not opposed to there just being one body, but I think that if we have one oversight body, I don't think we should give them much more beyond disciplinary powers, because I just think these are largely volunteer boards, and I don't want it to fail simply because there's just too much work. So that was one of the main reasons, and then the other main reason was around the selection process. I think we can get into the details on that at some point, but if the selection process changed, then essentially there would be a change over time if it was to the police commission. That's sort of a more complicated aspect of it, and we can get into the details, but there wasn't like for me, there wasn't any like reason why I was like, the police commission could never do this and it shouldn't. It's more just, it was around the need to create a body that could just sort of be able to effectively complete the task that and the duties that it had been
assigned to. And so that was more around, it was a technical decision mostly. So I just wanted to explain that. I feel like it's come up a bunch of times. There's a lot of different ideas about why that decision was made, but I just wanted to clarify that. And it's late, so I'll just end there.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you, Perri. And last but not least, Max.
Well, thank you. And I'll just continue on that theme because I think that we're all trying to work collaboratively, both as a caucus, but then also, with others, in the city to try and address some of the concerns that have been raised and to do so in a collaborative way. And I just think about a couple of different meetings and just experiences that I've had this week that are shaping how I'm thinking about some of these issues. We met, the three of us were met with the three Old North End councilors, met with neighbors who were dealing with an incredibly complex situation in their part of the Old North End, having to do with disturbances and all kinds of different issues that they're facing. And what's clear to us is that an enforcement-based strategy around issues like substance use disorders is not the way forward, and that we don't have enough support systems outside of what currently exists and outside of the policing as it currently exists in order to meet the need. We were able to speak with Lacey Smith, who fulfills that role within the department, but there's only one person really in the department now who works directly with people in that capacity. And so there's just a lot of unmet need. That was one of my real reflections coming out of that conversation with folks as we listened to them, was that there's just so much unmet need and that we need to do much more to build out those positions. In addition to that, I also spoke with a CSO, which is a community support officer, and that's part of the proposal, at least the beginnings of a proposal, because we have not seen a fully throated, or I mean, not a fully throated, but a fully developed proposal from the mayor's office around this. I think we'll likely see something. It's not coming at this council meeting, maybe at one of the upcoming council meetings. I think we'll be addressing this issue. And I think there are very real questions about the balance between these different roles and how we engage. So there was an element focused on community support officers. These are unarmed members of the department who fulfill roles like the person that I spoke to focuses on VIN numbers and animal cruelty and animal control issues. And so what I think is crucial is that we continue to build out unarmed officer roles, and that are not officer roles, but unarmed roles within and without the department in order to be able to more directly address some of these needs that we see in our community. And I say without the department because, or outside of the department is probably the better way to put it, because I think that there is just real stigma around for many people around interacting with anybody who has anything to do with the police, and that there's not that level of trust. And so we're going to need to be creative about how we resource these positions and where we place them, because that will influence just how effective they are. I think about this when, in the context of some of the conversations we have around addressing substance use disorders, and how stigma is a real barrier to accessing treatment resources, and how in some cases that stigma can be attached to police and policing. And so to put someone in the department and expect that to be the right fit for addressing everybody who might need their services, I think is really incorrect. And so I'm in favor of also looking outside the department. What I don't think that we need to do, based on what Councilor Pine was saying, was to go back on the commitment that was already made. I think we have a real need to lean in here to creating these positions. And in fact, I think we could see some real benefits. One thing that I found out from the CSO was that it took a month to bring them on, from the time that they applied until the time that they started their job. They said that it took a month. So whereas an officer, the chief is saying, in order to bring a sworn officer on, it takes 14 months at minimum. And so I think there are ways that we can address these dire community needs in shorter order by, again, leaning into the creation of unarmed roles in our city that address those basic needs.
Okay, thank you, Max.
One other thing that I just wanted to mention really quickly is that there are public hearings at the city council meeting on Monday regarding the charter changes. And based on those public hearings, you can make further changes to the charter changes having to do with ranked choice voting, with just cause eviction, as well as the thermal energy charter change. So just wanted to tip folks off to that and let them know that there is another opportunity to weigh in on those, should they so wish.
Can I just?
Sure, Perry.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Were you done, Max?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Sorry about that.
I just forgot to mention that I had mentioned this a little bit during the debates, and I'm feeling like getting tired from the hour, but I just wanted to mention that I had, as I said, I did reach out to the administration about next steps on the oversight issue. I know from, I believe Councilor Paul is interested in working on this. It's a lot of moving parts, but I just wanted to express to everyone that I am doing my best to continue to work on this issue, to reach out to everyone who's sort of been key stakeholders along the way. And just, I know I said this during the former forum, but I just wanted to make it clear that, I'm working through it, and that the city leadership is essentially working on next steps on what to do, since the charter change will not be on the ballot this March. So I just wanted to let everyone know.
Okay, thank you. It's late, but if there are any pressing questions, I will entertain them from the audience. Are there? Jessica, can you see anybody with his or her hand up? Going?
No.
Going? Gone. Okay, then I think that the meeting can be adjourned, right?
Yes.
Thank you all for hanging in. About 40, almost 40 of you are here now. At one point in the evening, we had almost 140. So it was quite an evening. Thank you especially to our legislators and councilors and candidates. Thanks for your public service. It keeps the city going.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara, for moderating, and Patrick and Kevin for keeping those questions going, and Molly for the timekeeping. This was quite a night. It's fantastic. Thank you all. And Liam, thank you for getting rid of the Zoom bombers as they came in.
Right. I think that we are going to have to consider adding a password to our Zoom meeting. So we'll see. We'll discuss that with Liam and the whatever we are, steerers. So good night, everybody.
Night all.
Thanks.
I'll end the meeting.